So I'm just going to talk about a strategy is that has been helpful for my clients. And I noticed, Laura, you said you were about to get ready to put a bundle out into the world. I don't know how you feel about live events, no pressure, but this is a way that I have found helpful with some clients that I've worked with to increase their sales when it comes to larger products. Should you have like a larger bundle of resources? Heather, I noticed you said that you are a special education now assistant principal. One of my long-term retainer clients that I've worked with since 2021 is a special education teacher, and you probably also have like or are working towards like larger bundles of like adapted books or task boxes or airless learning and things like that. So this strategy can be helpful to promote those kind of things. And I mean, you can also, should you ever create a course or a membership somewhere on down the road, um, come talk to me and ask me any questions. But you can also like apply these concepts if you choose to diversify your income streams at some point. So, okay, so what do I mean when I say a live event? It could be a variety of things. I feel like most times people probably think like live event and you're thinking like a webinar or a master class. And yes, that is definitely one type of live event, like your traditional 45-minute to 90-minute masterclass. But there's other ones that you can also try that can just give a little bit of a live component. And I'll talk about why that's like psychologically with marketing, kind of important and can increase sales. But you could do something like a challenge. I would not recommend starting with that one. That's like the most amount of work. So don't start here, but maybe someday because they can be a lot of fun. I don't know if anyone's ever like participated in a challenge before where they have like the pop-up Facebook groups and like little action steps each day. There's also live video series or pre-recorded video series. So number 2 and number 5 would kind of pair together. You could do one pre-recorded, you could do one live, and those are like little mini snippets that you could email out to your email list each day. Or you could also do something very similar and take that concept and do more, if you're into social media, more of like a social media kind of first launch where you could go live a couple times on like Instagram or Facebook Live if you have a Facebook group and deliver the same type of material in there. We also talked or mentioned a webinar before. That's usually a good one to start with just because they're shorter in nature, like when you compare it to a challenge or doing a lot of pre-recorded sort of things. So that could be a good one to start with if that's something that you are investigating and want to try. Some of you might have participated in like summits before or, bundles where different teachers come together and in a subject area and like share certain amounts of information. All of these things could be a great way to kind of dip your toe into a live events world. But I know like it can be scary. So I do just want to go over the fact that going like live with your audience, it doesn't, have to be live on Instagram where like anybody could tune in. It could be something smaller, kind of, like I'm technically going live right now, right? With like a smaller community just to increase your visibility, your relationship with your audience, your email list. Yes, if you're active on social media, it's a great way to kind of test your your messaging, the message that you're communicating with your audience, and get that back, like feedback back in real time. And I think personally, the best thing about doing a live sort of event is that once you get the hang of it, the first one is definitely the hardest and the scariest, but once you get the hang of it, you can repeat this process for like different bundles or different things that you might want to promote in your business. So it's just one option. Okay, so there are, when we're talking about the lens of bundles and like specifically using a live event to better promote your bundle and get some sales, like specifically from TPT, there's sort of 3 ways to look at it. One, you could use this to promote your best-selling bundle, like one that always does really well. It might be one of your highest earners because typically like bundles or curriculum, tend to be higher priced because it's more resources. And you could use a live event to kind of lift what's already doing well. So that's like throwing gasoline on the fire, if you will, like, but in a good way, right? So that's one option. Option two is you could choose one of your lower performing bundles that maybe you can't figure out like exactly what's going on with it. Like people who buy it love it and you have a lot of feedback with it, but it's not getting like the traffic that you wish it would. It's not like the conversion's really high, but it's not getting like a lot of the views. Like people aren't putting their eyeballs on it. So that's another option. Or option three is to use something like this to launch a brand new bundle, one that is, just coming out or you're just putting together. And again, that's going to be kind of a twofer because you're going to get more eyes on it and it's brand new. So it's going to give it that little extra umph. I've seen all three of these like choices be really successful. You can try all of them. You can just pick one and kind of repeat the strategy and test them all out or, find one that you like and stick with it. But those are kind of the three like ways that I sort of think about like which one should we promote. So going a little bit deeper into that, if you need to, you probably also might kind of know, like, did you guys have a product or a bundle that like came to mind when I'm like your best selling one and you're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I feel like most people do, but yeah. Um, so you can pop over to TPT and if you've already posted this bundle, if you're not going with option three, if it's one that's like not already out there, take a look for the last 6 months or so at like conversion rates, views, when it tends to do, really well. Obviously back to school time is usually a great time for most people, in comparison to the rest of the year. But there are some products that like tend to do better in, January. It all, depends on what your audience and your niche is. So once you've kind of figured it out, you want to actually, because we have to figure out what we're going to talk about during this live event. It's not just a show up and here, buy my bundle, I have it. We need to attract our audience with thinking about what is your audience, your ideal client, the ideal person who would buy this bundle. What is the actual problem that the bundle will eventually solve for them? Like what's it fixing in their classroom or what's the gap that it's closing maybe in their curriculum, depending on what it is. And then how can you break that topic down, that like problem down into like a more actionable step so that you can turn it into something that you can actually teach to people and it will get them hopefully to purchase your bundle to kind of complete what they need. Your expertise when you're talking live, then combined with your actual like resource or product to get them their problem solved. So that's how we can sort of start thinking about how to choose your bundle. So your action steps for step one in this scenario would be to think about the type of bundle or the specific bundle you would like to create a live event around. Think about what type of live event you might like to try, whether that is maybe a webinar, maybe you're just going to go live in a Facebook group that you might have really quickly, like 10, 15 minutes, 2 days in a row, something like that. It can be short. And then we're going to start to think about smaller actionable steps that you can use to add value to your audience and to actually teach them to create this greater need to purchase your bundle. So let's talk a little bit more about narrowing our topic down, which we sort of got into and started to hopefully think about when we were thinking about like what bundle we might choose to promote. So when we start to think about that, and now that we have our bundle selected, we want to take it, we probably didn't select it in like this time, but once you have your bundle selected, start to think about like what is the overall goal that that bundle curriculum product can get them closer to in their classroom. So then we also want to take it a step further. And these are just like some questions you should be asking yourself. What do they, like your audience, think they need versus what do they actually need? So this is thinking about like our audience as being either problem aware or problem unaware. And you've definitely got people like in both camps. So as an example, I think we can say that most teachers want to have like successful classroom management. They want to have a well-behaved class, right? I think that's universal of like all teachers. Everybody wants to have a well-behaved classroom. Now, most people, but maybe not all people, know that in order to have a well-run classroom, you need solid systems and routines for both yourself and your students. It's going to help overall, right? Everything to run better. The students will know what to expect. They will know what to do when they come in the morning. So we know, right, that most teachers want a classroom that is well-behaved, kids that are well-behaved. Some of them, some of your audience might know that they need systems. Some of your audience might not know. You know what I mean? They just know they want a well-behaved classroom, but they don't know how to get there. So that is where we are going to slip in and help them understand how to get to a well-behaved classroom. I mean, I'm just using classroom management because I feel like that's an example that can work grades, K through 12, which is what I taught. So, okay, so that's the first thing we're going to kind of think about. Like, what does your audience know or what might they not know? Because not everyone, again, in that example, is going to know that like systems takes a little bit of trial and error, right? Are going to get them to be a well-oiled classroom machine. Okay, then the other questions to consider and think about when you're sort of brainstorming your live topic for a live event is, what is your audience interested in? What do they think they need? And this is where it kind of comes down to a little bit of like your messaging, because the word like classroom systems, like that's a little vague. Like, what does that mean? Like, that's not even like, most teachers don't walk around saying, you know what I need? I need some classroom systems. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that, but they might say, right? Like, I need a plan to change my seating chart that doesn't take me 3 days to figure it out. That might be a little bit more like speaking to teachers rather than like systems. Because like, what does that even mean? So start to think about like, what is your audience interested in and in their particular like language. You might not, or you might know they don't need it and they actually need something else. Like a seating chart will not make or break an entire classroom, right? Like there are other layers that go into classroom management besides a solid like seating chart and plan that way. But if you can deliver on what your audience feels like they need and then weave in more of what you actually know that they need, so hook them in with something like a editable seating chart, and you're going to show them like how to make an editable seating chart that they can use and adjust their classroom seating plan really, really quickly. You might hook them in with that, but while they're there, you can begin to talk about other systems that are helpful in their classroom. For example, if you were selling a larger classroom management bundle at the beginning of the year, if that's like our pretend product that we're selling. So these are just some things to think about. Think about taking yourself back a couple steps before you created this curriculum, this bundle. What were you learning? What did you need to know? All three of these questions can kind of get you a little bit closer into determining what your live event topic might be. What do they need to understand before buying the bundle? That goes back to kind of like the idea of people who are problem aware and problem unaware. It's kind of like, that's another good example that has nothing to do with teaching. Okay, it's like weight loss, right? I think, right, at some point in time, probably every woman on earth has wanted to lose 10 pounds, right? We'll just call it that. But if you are talking to women who are 23 and want to lose 10 pounds before they go on spring break to Mexico, or if you're talking to a 40-year-old woman who is done having kids and wants to lose 10 pounds, or if you're talking to a woman who's postmenopausal, for example, and wants to lose 10 pounds, you're going to have to use different language and different things to bring in each of those different women, because the 22-year-old is not going to be paying attention to the stuff you're saying to the 55-year-old woman. You know what I mean? So they need to have some kind of understanding. And this is why it's important to get to know your audience as best as you can. So thinking about like immediate problems that you can solve for them, what do they need to understand? What do they need to be aware of before they can even be prepared to come to your live event? And that's, I mean, that's a whole nother thing that we could talk about with like email list or things like that. But that's not for tonight. So the second thing that we'll do after we have identified what bundle we would like to use to promote, what bundle we would like to promote, then we want to start thinking about what it is, what your live event topic is based on the problem that that bundle or curriculum solves, what your audience is actually interested in and cares about, and then like how can we tie it back to the bundle that you're actually related, that you're actually like moving towards selling. So we're starting to brainstorm the live event topic. Hopefully we'll solidify that. And then we'll have to think about like, what actually do we need in our live event? So if we're thinking back to the fake example of a classroom management bundle for the beginning of the year, and maybe it has like seating chart stuff and classroom jobs and labels and procedures and routines. I don't know what all would go in there, but something like that. What you need to do now is, if you're thinking about your bundle that you want to be promoting, what are like the three meatiest pieces, the three most important components, the three like things that if we were sitting down for coffee, and I was like, hey, tell me about your, I got to go in 5 minutes, but tell me about this new bundle that you're about to, post on TPT next week. But I only have 5 minutes. What would be the three things that you would say to somebody who was like rushing out the door? Think about those three things, and we're going to base your live event topic around that. Okay. So maybe for the fake classroom routine one, we would do teaching procedures before content. So you have a, like in this bundle or in this resource, you have you have a resource that helps teachers teach classroom procedures before moving on to content. You have, I didn't think through my fake product the whole way, but you've got systems and routines. Not to be vague, you have that seating chart thing that I mentioned earlier, that fake editable seating chart. Resources in there as well. And then you've got a whole thing about like classroom jobs, for example. So you're going to, in your live event, talk under the larger like guise of systems and routines, but you're going to hook them in with talking about like the importance of seating charts. And then you're also going to talk about the importance of teaching procedures before like you even get to content, or you're setting yourself up for disaster. And then you'll also talk about like ways to get into assigning classroom jobs. Now, you're not going to tell them everything, right? Because that's like what's in your bundle. So this will be recorded. So take a screenshot of this. This is obviously a very quick snapshot of what you would be including in a live event. So if you were designing a live event, a webinar, if you will, this is basically the 7 points that I would encourage you to include. So you want to make sure at the beginning that your audience knows that they are in the right place. And if you've ever attended a webinar, I don't know, we're all in the online business space now. So some of us have probably attended some pretty good webinars, and some of us have probably attended some pretty bad webinars over the course of, however long you've been in the online space. But A good one is going to make your audience do a lot of this at the beginning when the person is saying, and if you've ever experienced this, or you're in the right place, if you feel this way, or if you've tried this and it didn't work, so then now you feel kind of like this. There's a lot of head bobbing, hopefully, at the beginning, even if cameras are off, at the beginning of a good webinar, so your audience feels like they're absolutely in the right place. This is also in order, by the way, of the order that I would put it in. You want to make sure that you are mentioning who you are and like kind of why they should listen to you in a way. That's what I mean by like authority building bio, like a little about me section, but don't spend too long on it, because let's be real, people are interested in you, but like they're more interested in what you're talking about. And then you would transition into description of problems that they might have been having in their classroom. If we're talking about that classroom like management, fake product again, mistakes they might be making, why doing this isn't working. And then here are some things that you can start to move into if you want to be more successful and have a better behaved classroom by the end of this year. So then you would move into your 3-step framework for getting the results. And you would begin to talk about that and give them a little nugget from each of your 3 meatiest points, if you will. Problems they could still run into when they're putting the framework into use. And that is when, like, you might have tried these things before, and we've talked about a lot of good things here today that you can start to use in your classroom. So that your students, know what to expect in the morning, and you can start implementing systems in your classroom. But if you want to save yourself a ton of time and a ton of work, I have this resource and I invite you to, take a look. And then you would go through like the features, the bells and whistles, everything that is great in your curriculum or your bundle. And then the last thing that you would do would be a Q&A, and kind of a very brief nutshell of what a webinar outline might be. What else might you include in a live event? The optional, but you don't have to. But teacher audiences, I mean, they love a good workbook. Let's be real. Doesn't have to be fancy. A Google Doc will do. It can definitely increase like the engagement within your live event. It makes people feel like, well, and not just makes them feel like they really are taking action, but it makes it easier for them to take action, see something tangible at the end of your live event. And then of course you can include bonuses. Again, you totally don't have to. But that can be pretty successful. I don't know if anyone here or watching the replay later also happens to have like their own WooCommerce store, because you can't give store credit on TPT so easily. But I've seen things like that be successful, or like an extra teaching resource, or if people have like a membership or a course, giving a month access to their course or a month free in their membership. So you can choose to include extra bonuses that would be complementary of your bundle, your curriculum, but you certainly, don't have to. Okay, so when we are thinking about just very simply creating our live event mission statement, if you will, you just want to, at the very end, boil it down to something very clear. So like my live event, my webinar, whatever you decide to do, teaches, you want to make it specific. So going back to our fake product, my live event teaches kindergarten and first grade teachers how to increase student engagement in their classroom without the behaviors getting out of control, for example. I mean, that's one I just made up with our fake event. But then you would want to have a little kind of clarifying tagline, which could be a really great subheadline on a registration page. So learn how to set up systems and procedures in your classroom in 60 minutes so that you can stop managing student behavior and start teaching, or and start having fun with your students, or something along those lines. So just very like plain. This doesn't have to be the title, but just so you're clear and everyone else is clear on what your live event does, and then a little tagline or subheadline to clarify a little bit more what it does. Okay, so action step 3, we've selected our bundle that we are going to promote. We have brainstormed ideas for a live topic and constructed a whole live event with our event outline, thinking about bonuses, workbooks, making sure it's clear and concise and actionable. Okay, and I've added on just some information about tech if you should ever want to try this, because I think this is sometimes where people get stuck, especially TPT people who, are creating resources and really good at like being creative, but like the tech can definitely be a little bit overwhelming. So I do want to say that yes, it does exist, but no, you don't have to make it like very, very fancy and this whole like bells and whistles shenanigans thing. At the very least, here's what you need. You need a what we would call like a registration page, which is where people can sign up for your live event. You also, I guess, could forego this if you were doing something simple in a Facebook group, or if you were doing something simple on like Instagram. But I would generally, if it's something you think you might like to repeat, I would encourage you to have a registration page just so you can like actually get an accurate count of the amount of people who signed up. And you can make that on anything. If you have your own website, fabulous. You can even do it on Canva. Like make a very simple like Canva website that is not too tricky to do and people could sign up there. So it doesn't have to be like very elaborate. You would need an email marketing software would be helpful in this case. So I just listed a couple common ones, but many of you might already have an email marketing software that you've selected. And you would need a place for people to purchase your bundle at the end. So, I mean, of course, like you can send them to the TPT link. That totally makes the most sense. But you could also, if you have something like Flowdesk or ConvertKit or Kajabi, you could also do an email marketing checkout in there and bypass TPT and just deliver the product through an automation. Or, there's always like Thrivecart, or you could just very simply also like have another sort of simple website with like a PayPal or a Stripe button. There's lots of options to do it. But at the very minimum, I would say registration page, a way to email the people who are coming and who you're trying to deliver the bundle to. And then a way, of course, to collect money, because hopefully we're making sales at the end of this. Then, I mean, you also need a way to go live. So that could be Zoom like this. It could be, of course, any like webinar software, Google Meet. I mean, that's free. And so Zoom, like depending on the amount of people that you have come. So those are some options there. And then, I mean, you don't really need any fancy like headphones or microphone. You could definitely have them. It probably sounds better with headphones. I should be wearing them, but I'm not today. But headphones, microphone, I mean, I'm just using the stuff that's on my desktop right now. And then if you want to send out a replay to people who signed up, or if you want to sign or send out a replay to people who are on your email list, or provide that and then, maybe get some more sales, there's, 2 options. You could certainly upload it to like a Google Drive or a Dropbox, share the link via email. That's definitely like the lowest tech and most simple way. Or if you have some kind of like online course platform like Thrivecart or Teachery, any of the ones that I've listed, you could, of course, certainly upload it to there and just store the information there. But there are ways to do it really, really more simply and low tech. I also recommend project management software, but that is not necessarily required either. But if you are trying to do a live event like at a certain time with due dates, sometimes project software, management software might be helpful. Okay, And then as far as just really simple with logistics, so again, it doesn't have to be hard. Registration page, way to email people, way to collect money. You don't have to offer a replay, like that's fine. So very minimally. And then thinking about like logistics and like what would the timing be? How would I do this? Generally, I recommend to people to start to invite people to your live event 2 to 3 weeks before. Um, so let me back up a second. I would first recommend choosing a live event date that like works for you and your life, like your audience. When are they the most active? Are they mostly in school, out of school, afternoon, evening? So I would start by thinking about like the actual timing of your live event and pick a date that like works for you. Most importantly, don't, schedule it on your kid's birthday or something. And then back up 2 to 3 weeks before. That's when I would invite people to the live event for 2 to 3 weeks leading up. You can invite them via social media, via email, in your Facebook group if you happen to have one. And then uh, you would be, selling and promoting. Let's say it's a new bundle in this case, your new bundle the same day as your live event. And then if you were going to do any like special bonuses or anything like additional, or maybe like a special, like just a special, like, launch price, which I think a lot of people do, where you might sell a bundle at the beginning for, 30% off, and then the price increases after a certain amount of days. I usually recommend 5 to 10 days for any like sales specials that you have going on, from the date of your launch event to whenever those bonuses end. That's just a little bit about like logistics of it. And that's me. Here I am with a glass of wine, but you can always email me. I'm on Instagram mostly at Duxbury Digital. That's my email address if you think of any questions later. Melanie at Duxbury Digital. It's at .co, not .com. That domain was taken when I started my business, and I think it's cost me some emails over the course of the last 4 years. I have some free resources you might find valuable. Probably the one that would be most valuable overall for this group, and it's actually one that's done pretty well. It's a standard operating procedures template and cheat sheet specifically designed for TPT people. So it has like some common standard operating procedures that you might, want to have or use in your business, and kind of like a checklist for how to get that set up. If I also have a course and launch checklist, and also a market research freebie, which also might be helpful for you all. Some questions to ask your audience to get to know them better, because that can be really important with like product development. And should you ever move into having a course or a membership, I do have a group program that we hold hands through your launches, through your course or membership launch. And it's a 12-week group program where we talk about all things course and membership launches, and it has launch support involved. So that's the end of my spiel about bundles and using bundles and live events to better promote your bundles.